troubles fade away. Got 24 hours to kill. No more, no job, no bills. Ain't nothing getting in my way. I don't want an adult today. Dust off my old Shakespeare cold. Being cheating at the fishing pole. I ain't worried about the art. Got some songs on my guitar. Then when this day is through, you know I'm gonna feel brand new. Don't try to get in my way. I don't want an adult today. Life ain't just about getting paid. Gonna make a little time to play. Watch my troubles fade away. Got 24 hours to kill. No more, no job, no bills. Ain't nothing getting in my way. I don't want an adult today. When we were younger, everything was funner. When we were younger, everything was funner. I don't want an adult today. Life ain't just about getting paid. Gonna make a little time to play. Watch my troubles fade away. Got 24 hours to kill. No phone, no job, no bills. Ain't nothing getting in my way. Don't you try to get in my way. I don't want an adult today. Don't want an adult. Ain't adult today.
guitar.
That was truly wonderful, gentlemen.
Oh,
Thank you.
So, this is Monroeville.
That is right.
I've never had an entire population of a city in my music basement. Pretty amazing. Where exactly is Monroeville? I assume it's
Monroeville.
a real city.
There are some real Monroevilles. I guess our reference would be more of like a state of mind, I guess you could say.
I see.
But there's a Monroeville, Alabama. There's a Monroeville, Pennsylvania. If you guys are into zombie movies, they filmed one of the zombie movies in the Monroeville Mall, so everybody remembers that one.
Really? I remember being in Monroeville Mall one day, and I was shopping for clothes, and here comes all those zombies.
Yeah.
Really disrupted my shopping. But how did you choose the name Monroeville?
Well, the reason we get it is from the father of bluegrass music would be Bill Monroe. So,
Aha,
yeah,
okay.
Monroeville comes from Bill Monroe.
That makes a lot of sense. Why don't we introduce the guys here
Yeah.
and tell us maybe a little bit about yourselves and how you came to join the band.
I'm Chevy Watson. I try to play the guitar a little bit. Matt hired me on about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And, I was actually helping the bass player move in to town over there because he actually got hired on before I did.
Yeah.
So
Well, they're cousins. So
Yeah, we're cousins.
Ah,
They come from the same part of North Carolina where they're all cousins. So,
Right.
we don't feel
he said,
that.
"Oh."
Yeah. But
That's the standing joke in Monroeville right now.
right, yeah. Well, we were hanging out, going to hang out with these guys at Margaritaville to listen to them a minute, and he was telling me that the guitar spot was coming open, asked if I wanted the job. So, needless
Hired
to
him on the
say, I
spot.
started a week before the bass player did, but he got hired a week before I did.
Yeah, so you've
done
got
that.
tenure. He's the new guy. All right. And now you've just switched from banjo to guitar here, so you're a multi-instrumentalist, obviously.
Yes, sir. My name's McCoy Borg, and I've been with the band for 6 years. I'm the longest one besides Matt.
Oh, okay.
Been here a while.
Yeah.
He was green. He was 19 when he came on here.
Yeah,
Wow.
Paul was too.
Yeah, I hired two 19-year-olds. Yeah.
Pretty good.
And I play guitar and banjo.
All right.
He also plays mandolin and bass. He plays everything.
Multi-instrumentalist.
That's right. They all are. Pretty much everybody. Even
Really?
the drummer can
Okay.
play some guitar and keys and stuff.
Great. And one day they'll get you a whole drum kit.
One day
too.
they will. Right now they've limited me to
I can
this.
also eat mandolin headstocks too.
Ah.
He's like, "Ah."
So what's your name?
My name is Evan Pitchers, and I'm originally from St. Louis, but now I reside in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And I've been working remotely with you guys
a while.
a while now because they would send me the stuff because I was living in St. Louis. They live in Newport. It's about, 8.5, almost
Yeah,
9
that
hour
drive was pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah, so, but now I live in Nashville, so I've been playing with them a whole lot more. And I play drums, cajon, little guitar if needed be. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and Matt, you're, I guess you're the leader of the band,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I started this band in 2010, and there were 6 of us original band members, and they kind of petered off over the years, and then I ended up owning the whole thing. So, it's just been kind of a turnover. You know how bands can be. So, but these guys have all been here 4 to 6 years, so it's really blossoming here under this lineup. We've really been enjoying it.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about our.
Oh yeah,
terrific
got to
bass
include,
player.
the bass player.
Yeah.
My name's Paul Watson. Like Chevy said, Matt hired me about 4 years ago. And well, the funny thing is that he was wanting Chevy to play bass for him at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me up just for like a reference.
I didn't know you played Blade.
And he didn't even know I was the bass player. Like Chevy's a guitar player. I'm a bass player.
Right.
But he called
I
me
asked
up.
him,
He
I was
said,
like, "Is he a
hey
good
man,
bass player?"
Yeah, hey man, is Chevy a good bass player?" I said, "Yeah, man, he'll do anything you want him to do."
He didn't say,
mean,
"Yeah,
give me
you
enough
can
time.
hire me." He didn't even say that.
And then Chevy told him that I played bass, and here I am.
And you play a 6-string bass too. That's kind of interesting.
Recently
Just started
acquired.
that.
Yeah, recently acquired.
That's a pawn shop find.
Yeah, pawn shop fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he plays the upright,
Oh, man.
electric. He plays anything that's bass. He can play it.
Oh, terrific.
Get
Play
down
some
on it.
guitar too, man. He got that flamenco.
You're all multi-instrumentalists then.
Yeah, bluegrass tends to breed the multi-instrumentalists that are, high caliber of musicianship. That's just something that's known for in bluegrass. Young, they start out really young.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious how long you guys have been playing. I mean, were you like child prodigies at some point here?
I think you started the youngest, didn't you, Chevy?
About 5, 6, yeah.
I'm saying, how old were you then?
I was 6th grade.
Sixth grade, okay.
Yeah.
I know you were what,
12.
12, so you were about in that range, and you started a little bit younger than that,
I
right?
started when I was 8.
8. And I started guitar when I was 7.
You know, at that age, I was still drooling, basically. I really didn't have any,
drooling
any
on my
skills. No, nevertheless. So you talked about bluegrass music. Is that how you would describe your music these
Oh,
days?
not quite. No, it's definitely steeped in that. It's influenced by it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we kind of throw back to Bill Monroe and the name. Obviously, we have banjos and mandolins, but
Right.
our style is just unique of its own. Its influences draw from what stuff that inspired us. You know, me and him listened to a lot of alternative in the 90s and 2000s, and a lot of that kind of seeps through. And
Right.
of course, classic country and country in general is always a big inspiration, but you'll hear a lot of metal. Just a lot of different influences kind of bleed through what we play.
I want to hear some heavy metal on banjo. Is that possible? Can we do that?
Probably do that.
Okay. You will have to get a bigger drum set.
I will,
though,
yes.
because-
Yeah.
So how would you describe the trajectory of your music since the beginning to what it is now? How has it kind of evolved?
That's a good question because it's been an evolution of our music. It's went a lot of different ways. We started our very first project was a very much progressive bluegrass, I would call it. It had undertones of bluegrass but still strictly in the bluegrass realm. And then it went from that to almost like a traditional country sound because I had a couple of guys that were just really great country singers, and that was kind of the sound that we made. And then the last album we did was called Worlds Apart, and I would call it an experimental album because it was just a fusion of alternative and rock and bluegrass and country. It was just that's why it was called Worlds Apart. It's just different from anything. And we've kind of settled in. I think we've decided that we kind of get placed into a country, and we all really like a lot of what country. There's a lot that we don't like, but country overall is a big tent, and I think that we can find a pretty good home there. So everything we've been writing has kind of been geared now. So the next stuff that'll be coming out will be definitely in a mainstream country with the bluegrass kind of flair to it.
So do you have people in the audience coming up to you and saying, I really like that, but what is it?
Yeah, all the time. They don't know how to define us. They try to say, what they think, and usually it's the same thing. It's like bluegrass rock, they call it.
Yeah.
Because when we're playing, oh God, here.
Yes.
When we're playing most of our gigs, we don't use electric instruments, but so we definitely have the acoustic feel.
That's Boo Boo, and obviously Boo Boo has some questions. But
Yeah, you know what?
Boo Boo
You won't
can't
play
answer.
bass?
Boo
I'd
Boo
love
told
to have
me
him
to
be
ask
part of
the
the-
questions.
You can play
Yeah.
No.
So, there are a lot of bands these days that are delving into, that started with bluegrass and then they kind of evolved from there. And sometimes, some of the bands that I speak to, they say, well, people the bluegrass fans don't like that. And they say, that's not bluegrass. And they almost get offended
Yeah.
because you're not sticking with the tried and true. I mean, do you find that at all?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Bluegrass is, in fact, they haven't liked us for a long time because you're not supposed to have drums in bluegrass. That's the thing. Yeah.
That's why, well,
You
we're
know,
working towards the bigger kid, yeah.
We're working.
It's Evan's fault.
So,
it is. It's definitely. And the thing that I've figured out though is people's got their opinions, but we quit kind of running the bluegrass market. There's a whole world in bluegrass. That's a whole market. It's a whole. It's not very large because everybody there knows each other and everybody are working the same festivals. And, we did that the first couple of years. We played most of the big festivals that bluegrass had to offer, and it was great. I mean, I love those. Grew up going to some of the bigger festivals. But we were like, it would be better for us to kind of pull back and let those bands, compete for that money there and that living, because we had our living in Gatlinburg. We had a tourist location at the Moonshine Distillery that allowed us to
Right.
play without having to travel at all. So for the last 5 or 6 years, we hadn't even really traveled at all. We just been playing a house gig, playing for thousands of people a day,
That sounds like the ideal situation. And you said that you do like 30 shows minimum every week?
At least, because every day that we play, it used to be a 10-hour shift. We'd play from noon to 10, and we would do like a 40 or 45-minute set every hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but now it's a 5-hour shift, which is still a lot. Most musicians are like 5 hours.
Yeah.
But, we'll start 15 minutes after the hour and quit 15 till. So it's, 30, 35, 40-minute set, and we break for 20 minutes and, do it again 5 times a day.
That's like a full-time day job.
Yeah.
Wow. But I would imagine playing that much and so consistently, it's really allowed you guys to tighten your sound and get very cohesive at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of a blessing and a curse because where there was kind of a perception that you had to play bluegrass there, so we were kind of stuck playing a lot more of that traditional stuff, which we love, and we always do in our sets. We do include the traditional to bring people back to bluegrass, because when we pulled out of the bluegrass market, our idea was to appeal to a wider group of people and bring them into the fold, bring them. And we see people like Ricky Skaggs did that. Alison Krauss did the same thing. They all come from the same world we come from, and they were not appreciated when they left. They said, why are they doing that? That's how, but then all of a sudden they reach a certain status and then everybody loves them.
Right. Right.
And they bring thousands and thousands of people back to the traditional bluegrass, which is what it should do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious who some of your influences might have been, other than Bill Monroe, mayor of the town of Monroeville. But other than that, who were some of the influences that you might have listened to while you're coming up?
I'm a metal fan, so I'm like a huge Slipknot kind of guy.
All right, we're going to have to edit out that part. Just kidding.
I mean, I like stuff like Dirty Loops, and I like a little Michael Jackson. I just like a wide variety of whatever.
All right, okay, all right. And
Just
yourself?
more hardcore, man.
I'm more of an alternative person. Like 90s alternative is like my favorite era of music, like the Goo Goo Dolls and Matchbox 20, and there's classics for me, and that's what I grew up on listening to, Collective Soul and stuff like that too.
All right.
Yeah. James Taylor, Manhattan Transfer, Huey Lewis and the News.
They had those ready.
They have those prepared answer.
And recently the 1975. They're amazing. Go check them out.
Yeah, I've heard about them. And, well, before we get to Matt.
Well, I'm a Motown guy. I've always loved Motown.
He's a bass player.
And I'm a bass player, so I mean,
Jamie Jamerson, right?
Yes, sir. Well,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people don't know James Jamerson didn't play on all the Jackson 5 stuff. I don't even know the guy's name that played on I Want You Back. I forgot his name, but James Jamerson didn't play on that song.
Yeah, wow. And how about you, Matt?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of early country influences. I love classic country singers like George Jones, but I'm like McCoy. I grew up, my, formidable years and my preteens and all that was during the alternative phase. So there's a lot of that stuff that really kind of just speaks to me. It's just, it's close to my soul. So that's a lot of the influences that I got from, and of course, all the bluegrass influences are a big deal because my family, that's what we listen to together. So, we spend a lot of time listening to all of the old stuff, and then a lot of the new progressive bands that started really changing and adapting. Third Time Out and Blue Highway and Alison Krauss and Union Station. Those were just like everything to me. Like we loved that stuff.
And who writes the material? Who writes the song?
It had been mostly me writing, but over this last stretch, moving into production of the newest stuff, it's been all of us contributing, and still, and I just recently got married a year ago, actually, and my wife's a terrific songwriter, so we write a lot together as well.
Well, that's great. I mean, you talking about your influences, I'm trying to figure out in my head, with all these varied influences, how this comes out. It's pretty
It comes out in
diverse.
weird ways. Like I just sometimes you'll just hear Chevy like, Chevy's one of the kind of players that he doesn't play the same thing twice. It's always just all just coming straight from within him, and you'll hear little things come out of him, or we'll be listening to something, driving down the road together, and then like the next gig, all of a sudden you just hear a little bit of that come out. It's like, hey, I remember that lick or those notes that you transferred somehow to the acoustic guitar, which is, you know, and these guys all do that, and it's really cool to see and hear that.
So, I mean, do the songs originate from like just loose, spontaneous jam sessions, or does somebody come in with a song, or is it kind of all improvised and then formulated?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no rules when it comes to creating. So the most recent session we had was in January. We borrowed a loft in Bryson City, North Carolina. There's not much there. It was cold. And we just locked ourselves in this giant loft, and we just sat there and we talked about stuff. And we didn't, I mean, most of the time we were just shooting pool and hanging out, and then, you know, something would come and we'd sit there and work on it and be like, you know, this ain't working. And then the next day it just like, you know, sync together. In fact, we're going to play one of those songs here in a minute that we wrote on that excursion together.
Very good. I should probably shut up now and just listen. Right? Okay. All right. Why don't we hear that now?
Yeah. So this is that song that we did there at the loft. It's called "Trippin' on Love." So, all right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. That Vegas Strip is just another street. Don't need no trip to feel a little heat. Grand Canyon's got some pretty views. It ain't got nothing on looking at you. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. Won't cost me a nickel, baby, you're my dime. Let's keep this simple. I just need your time. Don't need no passport, beaches or the sea. My happy place is right here next to me. I'm tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. You're my ticket to paradise. No ocean's bluer than your eyes. Your smile wonder like the month of June. Don't need no Mardi Gras, Taj Mahal, not Niagara Falls. Forget it all, 'cause baby, I'm falling for you. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. They're chasing nickels, and I've got my dime. Let's keep this simple. I'm yours, you're mine. We're tripping on love, love, baby. Tripping on love, love. You're my ticket to paradise. No ocean's bluer than your eyes. Your smile warms me like the month of June. Don't need no late nights, city lights. Baby, that will be alright as long as I'm right here with you. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love. Tripping on love, love, baby. Tripping on love, love.
That's fantastic. You guys write some good songs.
Thanks, man.
You know, I think that a lot of bands these days have the chops, but the ability to write and perform really good songs is what sets them apart. And you
It's
guys
all about
seem
the
to
songs,
have that.
man. I'm glad you feel that way, because that's where we figured that we needed to work on. We had all the other pieces, we just didn't have the songs.
So when you perform, would you say 6 hours a day now?
Yeah, it's average. Yeah.
Are you doing covers as well?
Let me put it this way. A couple of years ago, we started moving away from the bluegrass and doing more mainstream stuff that people knew. And we started incorporating, that was not something that we had done. We started covering songs like Despacito, you know, by Justin Bieber, you know, that Latin song, and Sweet Home Alabama, you know, things like that that people knew that kind of really got the crowd
Right.
going. And then we started writing all this stuff, and so we've kind of pulling that stuff back. So I go like a 90% original to 10% cover stuff now. And if it's a cover song, it has to be something that's completely original sounding.
Right.
You know, our own interpretation of that. We don't just cover a song, you know, like the
Like
band.
Despacito.
Yeah, it's completely different than anything you've ever heard. Yeah.
I think that's a credit to the venue, to the distillery, that they don't insist that you do cover songs, because a lot of times these places want to have their bands do familiar songs just to draw people in. But the fact that you're able to have this freedom is really, I think, very special.
And that's what I was referring to earlier. It was exactly the opposite. See, they found out we were doing some of those songs, and they told us to cut out the cover songs and stick to bluegrass.
Wow.
They said we're known for bluegrass, and I understand. It was a unique place in the entire country where anybody could go at any point of the day and hear bluegrass music, and that really kind of was their branding, and the rocking chairs and all that stuff. And then things started kind of to evolve there, and you know, they started bringing in bigger bands, and they're bringing in one of our heroes, Sister Hazel's coming in and playing, and we're opening up for them.
That's
so,
terrific.
So it's always been, though, if it was original stuff, we could do anything that was all original. So that's what we started doing. We just started writing our own and playing mainly just ours.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you were the IBMA, the International Bluegrass Music Association, chose you as what, Momentum Band of the Year?
Yeah, that was actually a part of a movement that I was involved in at that time in about 2011 and 12. There was a group of people that got together to see if they could change a little bit. It was getting a little bit stagnant, I guess you could say. The same people were winning the same awards, and they deserve that. The best musicians in bluegrass were constantly winning the same awards. So we were trying to figure out a way to recognize some of the newer talent that was coming along. And so we devised this whole second set of awards that would be chosen by a board of people, and it was called the Momentum Awards. And they just happened to select my band that year as the very first Band of the Year award. So
That worked out well for you.
it worked out well for me. You know, it was really cool to be a part of that, and then to get recognized was even, you know, the icing on the cake.
And you've had some other high-profile gigs too, right?
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
us about that.
Well, we did the national anthem for the NASCAR Motor Speedway in Bristol. We did that, and you know, it was 100,000 people there, and televised on ESPN. I mean, that was just, you know, we were just like trying not to pee on ourselves, you know. I mean, it was
always a good thing.
Yeah, well, especially when
Try
the
not to
Jets-
pee. I think that's the first rule of show business.
do
Actually.
not pee yourself.
Do not pee on camera. Yeah.
I think we've seen what happens on that. What was the movie? The one with Lady, Stars Born, where he pees on himself.
I actually, you know, you just gave it away. I haven't seen that movie.
Oh no, I spoiled it.
That's the ending.
I
just gave it
spoiled
away.
it. Oh gosh.
And didn't you do something for the CMT or something?
That's right. We
Yeah.
had a video called "Be Natural," and that's still available. And at that time, CMT Viacom was signing a lot of, you know, contracts with bands to distribute their music, and we got kind of in that window for that while. They were doing this whole website development that included all these artists. It was just this massive undertaking. And so they were trying to sign a lot of different people, and we just were at the right place at the right time, and our stuff got distributed through them for a while, through CMT and through Viacom. And, you know, that was kind of a little boost for us, because that was the second record that we put out, and that was kind of our big single off of that record. And it was nice, you know, to get that recognition.
So what's next here? You seem to have some great momentum building here. What does the future hold?
Well, promotion. They're the ones
Yeah,
running the
promotion.
cameras right now. These guys are, you know, I've known them for quite a while. Well, at least James, and the rest of the team is just, they're wonderful people. And so we've partnered together, and we're going to be working on basically our content. That's what we're here. We're going to start just putting as much content as we can. So the plan is to release singles starting in June, July, August, September. We'll be releasing a single every month with a music video with that single, and the album release will be in October. So we're
Very
just going to
good.
be working towards that goal right now, and just getting this new music out, and, you know, just running the connections, seeing what we can get. We're kind of outside of the industry, you know. We've had a lot of, you know, interest from people, but we've not had any like bites on it. And that's fine, you know. We have a large fan base, and we love just playing for our fans and meeting new people, and
we make a living, and whether or not we have any kind of mainstream success or not, we love what we do. This is what we're made to do. So we're not going to stop whether we get signed or not. We're just going to keep doing what we do, and if somebody wants us, great. If we have the right kind of deal, we'll take it. But other than that, we're just going to keep rocking it out.
Any plans to tour at any point?
Yeah, we've actually got several this summer. We've got short tours. So we typically go out, you know, for a weekend at a time and hit certain areas where our fan base are kind of located. And I was telling you, a lot of people come down from Ohio
Right.
to the Smoky Mountains. We love our Ohio, Indiana, all those Midwest people like that come down here, and we got quite a few fans there. So we'll be hitting Indiana and Ohio this year in July. Going back to Kettering, Ohio in October. I think that's when we're going to do our album release as well. And then we go to St. Augustine every year. So we've been working Florida for a couple of years. There's a very high tourist concentration in St. Augustine, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
And we're
I would
used to
imagine.
that, working that kind of crowd, you know. So that's kind of our bread and butter is, I guess the best way I can describe it is where there's so many people come into the distillery every day. And our job is to capture them and keep them there as long as we can. So we've learned how to read the audience, bring them in, and keep them there. So we like crowds. It's a challenge for us, you know. Every day is a challenge trying to keep people there as long as you can. You know, because they're not paying to watch you. They're not even there for the music. They're mostly there to try the moonshine. So they,
Which is a worthy pursuit, I would think.
you know, hey,
It's the job.
vacation,
Yeah.
$5 for all 13 samples. You can't beat that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
My big question is, they let you off for the day to do this, right?
Right. Well,
They
that's the
playing
good
hooky?
thing. They've been very good to us, and it's been a very symbiotic relationship. We've helped them develop a venue and a music scene, and they've helped us keep a job and doing what we love. So they're encouraging it. In fact, tomorrow they're opening a location in Nashville, just opened, and we're going to be kind of opening up that place tomorrow night officially. You know, doing a concert for them. So we're excited, you know, to go to Nashville. We're going to go to Southern Ground Studio and record that day.
It's great.
Yeah, that's Zach Brown Studio. I mean, it's a great joint. So we're going to go do that and then play the gig tomorrow night. It's going to be fun.
Terrific. Well, I wish you guys all the best. You just sound terrific here, and to your credit, I haven't seen anybody try to steal any of my CDs, so thank you for that. And just all the best. Continued success to you.
Thank you for having us, man. This place is really cool. I guess James said you've been wanting to do something like this
Yeah.
forever, right?
Yes, exactly.
So maybe this
exactly.
is the start of something really,
It could be. The security system is going in next week, so I trust you guys. Thanks for kicking it off.
It's not the dogs.
Yeah, well, the dog Boo Boo is chief security
Yeah, there you
officer.
go.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Fantastic. Bam.
That worked out all right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
that was
Kill it,
great.
man.
Cool.
Okay, I really did enjoy that music, man. That was really terrific.
Yeah, man. That's cool, man. Awesome. Really, really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm kind of giddy with delight myself.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I love just diving into
Yeah, no, that's, I know certainly.
But other than that,
I like that. Some flavored moonshine. I do like it.
Sugarland, I have to be honest, is better than what I know.
Well, I mean, does Old Smoky have flavored moonshine? And I should have asked this on camera. Do you ever have some samples? Does that infuse the performance at all?
No, it's not my thing. And like, none of these guys are really drinkers.
That's kind of interesting. Well, they're also younger, not of age. You guys are so young. You're probably not allowed.
Well, they're all of age, but they just, other than a little bit here.
Yes. Very respectable. Very good. Yeah. No, I really like this. And how many songs records do you have out
The world is out for you. We just finished demoing these new songs.
there?
It's a rough mixing, so I thought I'd do that.
Oh, thanks. Nice.
start of a new song.